know. All this week, we've been looking at the impact of coronavirus on the wedding industry. So we've been hearing from people who say, well, they've received very little help and that their entire season has been a write-off. A lot of people work in the wedding industry here in Northamptonshire. So from planners to dress shops to photographers to florists, everyone's been dealt a heavy blow.
31 weddings postponed, 29 of them to next year, 2 of them to 2022, and I've had 2 cancel. I was eligible for the SEISS grant, but the reality of that is that actually that's just helped keep the business afloat. It hasn't actually kept a roof over my head or fed the kids.
Just a couple of weeks before, we were in that kind of space of, well, what's actually going to happen? Are we going to need to close? And I think everything happened quite quickly, didn't it? It was suddenly like shops are closing within kind of a week or so. So it's had a massive impact on us. We were closed about nearly 3 months.
Being self-employed is an emotional roller coaster, but you learn to ride those waves, and I don't think anyone could have prepared any of us for riding the COVID wave.
Well, let's speak to someone else now then, Emma Freeman, who has had to postpone her own wedding, and actually she's become a bit of a campaigner to raise awareness of the difficulties that the sector is facing. Hi, Emma.
Good morning, Anna. You all right?
Yeah, nice to speak to you. What happened with your wedding then?
So we went from July, then to November, and now hopefully to March, but not feeling too optimistic about that, to be honest with you. I think I've just given up.
When did you start planning it?
The whole of the wedding?
Yeah.
About 3 years ago.
Yeah, gosh.
So it's been sort of 3 years in the running, but we've been together nearly 8 years, and we kind of knew from the very start that we would get married. So it's been sort of a long 8 years, little ideas of what we do, and then officially putting plans into place 3 years ago. And it's taken a lot of hard work, saving money to get the day we want, because we didn't want to compromise on anything. So we've really worked hard for it, and we just feel absolutely gutted now that we've got nothing at the moment to show for it.
So where are you getting married?
In Donington, there's it's called Donington Park Farmhouse. So it's a really nice old working farm barn style. It was our dream venue, really. So yeah, we just feel gutted.
What has struck me, speaking to all sorts of people this week, is, we've spoken to a few people who've had their weddings cancelled and, they've been gutted. But I think worse for people who work in the industry. We've got loads of venues here in Northamptonshire, haven't we? We've got loads of people like photographers, florists, people who run dress shops. And, it's just been such a shocker for them, hasn't it?
It's absolutely devastating. I think a lot of people still see weddings as a luxury, and so to some degree, if we're able to afford to get married to whatever capacity, it is a luxury. But at the same time, that luxury is also a livelihood for many people. And when you're not earning now for pretty much 8 months of the year, wedding season is pretty much coming to an end now. It's all gone. What have they got? And I know that some of our suppliers, for example, one of ours, she's had to take on a part-time job to make ends meet just so she can pay her bills and keep afloat. She's only had one wedding so far this year. And the money that she's making from a part-time job is currently going back, giving people their money back because they've decided to either cancel or hold off for a couple of years or so. So she's having to pay everything back and then just hope that she's still got a business for them to eventually come back to. So they're just not earning. And I think a lot of people forget at the same time is while they're not earning, they're also working essentially for free right now, because we pay a flat rate, and that's for a normal wedding situation if there was no COVID. Right now, there's the extra admin, there's the constant postponing to then replan, to resend contracts. They're acting as counsellors for us. So they're not earning, but they're working for free at the same time as trying to work out where the next penny is coming from. So they're doing things like free, styled shoots where they set up a sort of like a fake wedding, which costs them money to do, just to sort of have some content to show people this is what your wedding could look like. They're just absolutely desperate, and nobody seems to be listening. The government they've just completely forgotten the whole wedding industry. There's been no clarity with a roadmap in the same way that pubs, clubs, bars, schools, which obviously schools is a completely different and more important issue, but we've had no roadmap whatsoever. We've got no parity. So there's still different cultures have sort of more. Some of them are big parties for a reason. You've got the LGBTQIA. They're not even included in these current guidelines. So there's a massive part of the sector that can't work because they're catered for specific weddings. And at the moment, we've got nothing. The suppliers in the industry have absolutely nothing, got no choice. They've got, they're having to, some of them are having to almost force couples to go ahead with their day because they don't get a package in place. So that's what we're really trying to campaign for, is that clarity, parity and choice, to have that support and be recognised as a really important sector that bring in £70 billion a year to the economy and be taken seriously.
And you've started this campaign. You obviously feel strongly about it. It's called What About
I
Weddings?
haven't started. Yeah,
You're
I haven't
part of
personally
it.
started it. I think.
Are
I've
people
sort of been quite
listening, do you
active in
think?
it. They are starting to. We're starting to sort of. It was started, I believe, by Sarah Hayward, Annabelle Beeforth, Tamron Settle, Nina Beer, and a couple of others in the industry. And it was it's mainly suppliers sort of trying to shout from the rooftops, and then brides have got involved, couples have got involved, and they've done really well to get that. It's making progress. There are some waves being made, but not enough. It's nowhere near, the government at the moment keep updating the guidelines. They're not putting it out there that they've updated it. So literally a couple could go and get married the next day, but then realise they could have probably had more. The restrictions in those guidelines right now aren't clear. So although they are starting to listen, they're just not listening enough. And no one's saying, like, as a bride, I don't want my wedding tomorrow with 150 guests with no restrictions. I'm not silly. No bride is silly. We know there's a pandemic. The guidelines are there for a reason. So we're not asking or demanding that we have our weddings in full tomorrow. What we're asking for is some kind of idea of when it's going to happen, how things are going to happen. And we just need that. Suppliers really, really need that to be able to move on and know what's going on. They can't just keep dropping bombshells left, right and centre. And we're not asking at the same time as well is, I feel like we keep being deemed bridezillas, bandit brides. We're being labelled really negatively by some articles I've seen in some magazines. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, but we're not. We're deeply hurt, we're deeply angry. And as couples, we carry that hurt and anger for our suppliers too, because they've been so good to us. They're a vital part of our day, and they'll be a vital part of our memories in years to come when we're old and grey, when we look back at our day and think, how amazing was my hair, and how amazing was my dress, how amazing was the styling and the venue and the photography and the videography. They're a part of like our life now. And the anger is just carried by everyone that we're just not getting anywhere. It's really difficult.
Well, I can hear it in your voice. We're going to have to leave it there. But if people want to see about that campaign, it is What About Weddings. It's quite a big campaign. It's doing the rounds online. It's a hashtag on Twitter as well. That's Emma Freeman from Northamptonshire who's part of that. And it's been interesting hearing from all sorts of people in the wedding industry this week. Now, if you